Social change is inevitable, whether it's to a small culture or to an entire society. You'd have to live a pretty sheltered life to not notice some change in society from your childhood to your adulthood, and this constant is why I've decided to cover a particularly noteworthy change in society throughout history for the topic of my informative speech. I will cover the historical culture of the Enlightenment in the American colonies. To aid me, I've looked into some educational websites that will dive into more detail about this. I'm pulling them for sources, and I will cite them in the description below. This speech is going to go over the impact the Enlightenment had on American colonial culture. It will talk about how Americans had changed their views in science, religion, and power. Scientific development was a major element of the Enlightenment. Benjamin Franklin, a key figure in the Enlightenment, did a lot of scientific research. As cited by the Khan Academy link below, he did research on and published that research on electricity and how it conducts. This led to the rise of lightning rods. This sort of better understanding for the world through scientific discovery embodies what the Enlightenment is about. Curiosity, looking into how the universe works, and trying to do that to benefit people. It's pretty powerful, taking a force from the sky and learning how to control it. There's a reason why lightning has been associated with the gods throughout history. And speaking of the gods, another topic of the Enlightenment is religion. Now, religion was a hot topic, still is a hot topic to this day, and probably will still be a hot topic in the foreseeable future. But the Enlightenment was a period where that heat was simmered down just a little bit. It was not a complete abandonment of religion, and I even have this Venn diagram to show that I believe the concepts I'm talking about are connected into each other. I just discussed science, but the sad truth is science by itself won't lead to any major technological advancements unless it reaches those with power who fund it and support it. Those two need to go hand in hand. And with science and religion, that leads to the concept of deism. Deism is an interesting blend between religion and science. As explained by the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, deism is not completely rejecting the idea of there being a higher power. Instead, it's about looking at that higher power through the sense of what we know from the world around us, rather than what's taught at the churches and through religious texts. Also stated by the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, deism caught on. In fact, most of the United States founding fathers were deists. It was seen as a rational alternative to the strict rule of the church before, and that leads to the last point, the way power and religion intersect. Deism was, of course, not the only critical element of American Enlightenment culture. As said in History.com, the Enlightenment in general was a period of re-examining and looking at human freedom. Part of this was, again, the idea of separation of church and state catching on, gaining popularity. These critical ideas of the Enlightenment, taken from writers such as John Locke, eventually formed the backbone of the American Revolution, and the United States gaining its own independence from the British colonies. In fact, according to History.com, the Declaration of Independence, quote, framed the American Revolution in terms taken from Locke's essays, end quote. And that, one more time, leads me back to the Venn diagram. The three general elements that are looked into and criticized under the Enlightenment, the movements that rose from them, and all of them come together to make progress, which was a general ideal goal of the Enlightenment. This has been my explanation of how American culture changed during the American Enlightenment, how science, religion, and leadership were seen in the colonies. People always say the times are changing, and they're right. But I hope that this speech will give some insight on one such major change through history and give you something to compare that to. In the event that you look around your own culture and see similar signs, you might see history repeating. Will there be another age of enlightenment, and what will that bring?